Welcome to the Manhattan Project, where movies and review happen.
Usually. Last night, Evan and I headed out to one of our favorite theaters, the Angelica Film Center, to go see Brad Status, the new Mike White movie. That's the guy from School of Rock that isn't Jack Black. Take a look at our vlog footage.
So Evan, do you think it's ironic that the first movie we're seeing back from Toronto is a movie that premiered at Toronto, and we had tickets to and just didn't go to?
Yeah, I guess it's ironic.
Technically, I saw Kingsman when I came back, but it's his first movie back.
It's my first movie back, and it's a movie I could have seen several times while there, but I didn't. But that's when I catch up.
Hold on, if we keep walking, we'll probably catch the poster in the shot, right?
Of good old... No, not quite.
keep
Wait,
going.
we're getting closer.
Where do we are, Evan?
No, we're still not.
Where are we?
We're at the Angelica.
Right, our favorite.
Love it. It's so funny to get to. Oh, now we're getting close to the poster
Oh
for
my
it.
goodness. What are the odds that right here we have... We don't really vlog enough, and we don't have good content in our vlogs, do we?
No, we don't.
Top 3 movie theaters in New York, John. Would you say they're Angelica, and Angelica?
I'll say it's AMC Lincoln Square, the third floor where the IMAX is, AMC Lincoln Square, the second floor where the main theaters are, and AMC Lincoln Square, the basement where they have sort of the smaller theaters.
Gotcha. But what you forgot to mention is that Brad Status is the new film by Mike White. It's about a guy named Brad, played by Ben Stiller, who goes on a college trip with his son, and all of his neuroses about his status in life as compared to his college friends just come to the forefront. It's full-on middle-age anxiety attack. Why don't you check out the trailer?
My mind drifted back to college. So many friends have become successful. Craig Fisher worked for the White House. Jason Hatfield had his own hedge fund. Billy Wurstler sold his tech company at 40. What do I have? I work for a nonprofit. I have nothing to show for it.
Somebody asked about you, whatever happened to you. Where's Brad? I remember that guy Brad.
You happy?
Love you.
Present.
All right.
I love you.
These are competitive schools, Troy. Just try not to put too much pressure on yourself.
My counselor thinks that I'll get into pretty much everywhere I apply.
The kid's going to Harvard.
They'll jinx me, dude.
So, John, what were your expectations for this one?
Well, I'm glad you asked me that, Evan, because we always ask that question on the Manhattan Project, and the answer to it in this case is I expected Brad Status to be good. It had good reviews. I liked the trailer. I liked Ben Stiller. It looked like the type of plot point and actors that would make for a fun, entertaining experience for a boy like myself. I hoped that the sentimentality would be effective in making me be endeared to these characters, and I was expecting that it would, at least a little bit.
Brad Status is a sharp dramedy that might not have that much original to say, but surprisingly uses some of its own shortcomings to its advantage to make a pretty memorable movie.
Explain how it uses its shortcomings to its advantage to make a memorable movie, Evan.
So when it first started, it's really heavy on the voiceover, which can be a narrative crutch because it puts you right in the mind of the character so that it's literally telling and not showing things. But this movie is constantly using that to create subversion of expectations, or it also becomes like a running joke in the movie, like the things you expect him to think in certain situations. So it becomes really a point of comedy, the fact that we are being given an insight into what is essentially an unreliable narrator. It has a purpose as far as painting him in that way, as opposed to just telling him what he's actually feeling, because he's not necessarily all that aware of what he's actually feeling, even when he declares what he's actually feeling.
This is very much one of those one joke movies. Like the whole joke is Ben Stiller is narcissistic. Narcissism is the joke. Yeah. Luckily, it's a funny joke. I agree. I think that the narration, while it is eye-rolly at the beginning of the film, just like narration in any movie in the beginning is not eye-rolly, by the middle you're like, oh, I'm supposed to be rolling my eyes at this character and narrating his own life and his thoughts, because his thoughts are ridiculously narcissistic.
Right.
And the fact that he wants to say his thoughts out loud in what can be imagined as like a pseudo-journal or whatever he's like literally telling, however form of which he's telling the audience his thoughts, his narration. It's not like a movie that literally is self-referential. It's not like it cuts out and we see that he's like has a microphone talking to the audience. But whatever you can imagine is the reason why he's explaining these thoughts. It fits very well with his narcissistic character.
Right. Another thing that I was worried about had to do, and this is weird, but with the way that the movie would present his college roommates from back in the day that he's jealous of, for whatever reason, and this is so stupid, but the trailer, it always shows him in the same positions, and I was like, what's going on? Are we just going to keep seeing the same shot of Jermaine Clement on the beach? But once again, that's kind of part of the narrative, because most of him seeing them is the way that he's imagining them in life.
It's sort of like a shallow, rear view sort of opinion.
So it's able to use, like, basically, I guess, a budgetary restraint, where, like, they can't get these actors for that long and in that many locations, but that's fine, because that's not really the point. The movie is pretty solely focused on Ben Stiller, who's good at his one joke, and then shift the focus a little bit, and his son, who's really good in this movie. He's so much like a teenager.
Yeah, I was going to say that. For a movie that gets a little bit trying at times, despite overall, I think, being an effective satire, the thing that really kept it together for me is the unexpected performance that's given from this kid that's in, isn't that John Green movie? Paper Towns. He's in Paper Towns. He's not Nat Wolff. He's not the main kid, but he's one of the Paper Towns friends. And I remember him being pretty annoying in that movie. Here, he's a couple years older, and he's very subdued, very low-key. He's playing the type of teenager that you wouldn't necessarily expect to come from a Ben Stiller narcissist type. And yet he still feels like a real kid. Again, it's nice. He's not a shitty, bratty kid. He's a perfect kid. But his dialogue, his performance, it all rang pretty true to me, and I thought it was like a really clever and effective antidote, satisfying antidote to Ben Stiller's just like whiny ass nature of his son being like, dude, like, you're reflecting poorly on me. Like, I'm stressed out. Shouldn't I be the one dealing with this? Like, he seems like the kind of kid that wouldn't have any anxiety anyway because he's so laid back, but Ben Stiller is forcing it on him, and he would be self-aware about that. I thought it was very funny and effective.
Yeah, we talk so much about this in our reviews about, like, when kids are done poorly, when they're too precocious, they're too bratty, they're too whatever. And this was just not a case of a character being like that. I'd have to wonder, not reading into this too much, but knowing it's written by Mike White, who cameos in this movie as one of the successful friends, like, is Mike White, does he see himself as the neurotic Ben Stiller character? Or is it possible that he actually sees himself as the kid character and just his own father or someone else's life was the Ben Stiller character? Or is he a bit of both, you know, just because that perspective is well handled?
Either way, the kid plays well as, like, the polar opposite of Ben Stiller, as someone who doesn't overthink things and isn't constantly being neurotic, which is cool. Jenna Fischer's also in this movie from The Office. She doesn't have enough to do, but she's decent. Jermaine Clement, like you said, pretty funny in this movie. Luke Wilson has a good scene in this film. Michael Sheen comes and does what he always does, which is really effective at being like a guy that's condescending. But yeah, all around, decent supporting cast, although you don't see them as much. And then there are these two girls, one of which is played up a lot in these fantasy sequences, but barely has any dialogue. And the other one of which is this actress who's like, she's famous from some other shit, right?
I don't know what she's from. Maybe it's on Disney Channel or something. I only said it because of the age, not...
Whatever, but this actress, we'll throw up a picture of her or her name, is like the other supporting player that's actually not famous, and she also does a really good job at being the antidote to Ben Stiller as this sort of like rah-rah liberal college Harvard student who's like trying to change the world, and Ben Stiller wants to like sort of teach her or at least reflect upon her of how like, oh, I feel like I was the same person as you back in my day. And then there's a kind of fun subversive scene dealing with her being just like a real person that would be reactive to something like this. I thought she was a pretty authentic character. That type of character could be like easily made fun of, or on the other hand just be like written as like overly too smart and too decent as a person and like too likable. But instead, I think both the performance and the writing pulled off as like an actual pretty realistic portrayal of a smart, liberal college student and how they would react in a situation like this. They wouldn't be, too wise regarding the situation, but still they would react negatively to Ben Stiller. So yeah, overall the supporting players bring it all together, and I think this is more good than bad, even though, like I said, it's a little bit trying. It repeats the same sort of themes and ideas a little bit too much. I don't know if we really need 90 minutes of the same idea. I kind of wish there was a little bit more subplottage or a little bit more nuance to what the character ultimately is thinking about, because it's kind of a one-note film, but it does that note well, and it concludes it in a satisfying way, in my opinion. That's my review.
Yeah, not terribly ambitious. Brad's status is like a hotel bed, and even though it's only a 2-star hotel, you actually sleep pretty well in that bed. So they built a good bed for you to sleep in.
I guess the metaphors are back.
For now, probably not the next one.
stay tuned to a lot of more movie reviews. We saw movies in TIFF, we saw movies in New York. We're seeing movies every day, and we're going to review them. Not literally every day, but a lot of days.
Most days, it seems.